Let's begin with the tamer of the stories. Another frightening triangle appears in Philippine urban folklore similar to the infamous Bermuda Triangle. Within the Romblon province, the Romblon Triangle is located between the islands of Mindoro, as well as the Dos Hermanas and Sibuyan Islands. In addition, similar to the Bermuda Triangle, multiple marine mishaps and disappearances have occurred within the Philippine version. Among these was the world's greatest peacetime maritime tragedy, when the MV Dona Paz collided with an oil tanker and sank with 4,000 people on board in 1987. The MV Don Juan sank there in 1980, killing 176 people. In addition, during Typhoon Fengshen in 2008, the MV Princess of the Stars capsized. Only 32 of the 851 passengers were rescued. While it is true that the riptides within the triangle make navigation risky for ships, there have been multiple reports of a ghost ship appearing moments before catastrophe strikes. The ghost ship is claimed to be composed of pure gold and captained by Lolo Amang, who used to live among werewolves on nearby Sibali Island. This ship is said to have appeared soon before the MV Don Juan went down. There were several tales in the 1990s about AIDS-infected needles being placed on movie seats. This prompted parents to panic and children to lose out on seeing movies on the big screen. Another health-related legend spread like wildfire in Romania, frightening both children and adults. According to tradition, a black ambulance cruised the streets hunting for children walking alone. Whoever was inside would kidnap the children and then steal their organs to sell to wealthy individuals. The victims would be buried in a field with a tiny quantity of money for the funeral. These kinds of legends can potentially trigger public hysteria. In 2018, a Romanian writer was driving about Bucharest in her customized van, attempting to cut costs for a book tour, when she was encircled by a crowd of people believing she was the driver of the legendary black ambulance. Those who had surrounded the van jumped inside and began searching through the writer's stuff. Someone lit a cigarette on her cheek while another grabbed the van's license plates. Fortunately, the cops responded quickly and dispersed the crowd. They arrested 3 persons for violent and threatening behavior. Korea is home to some of the world's most terrifying legends. One of these tells the story of a young woman who's becoming increasingly concerned about becoming old and having wrinkly skin. She listened to any suggestions on how to maintain her skin looking young, and chose to try sesame seed therapy. Adding sesame seeds to bathwater, it appears, provides younger-looking skin. After a few hours, the woman's mother became concerned when her daughter refused to come out of the tub. She'd asked her daughter several times whether everything was okay, to which she'd received the response,
"Just a moment."
When she finally wrenched the door open, the mother was met with a terrible sight. Her daughter, who was still in the tub, was feverishly picking sesame seeds from her skin, which had grown connected to her pores and begun to grow roots. You may be wondering how she was attempting to remove it. By inserting a toothpick into her pores and attempting to extract the seeds. I've never encountered somebody who would purposefully walk around a cemetery at night. Still, it appears that there are brave folks out there willing to go to any length to confront an urban legend. Many a creepy story has been recounted about the 100-step cemetery near Brazil, Indiana, by individuals who counted the steps as they traveled up the hill where the cemetery rests. It is supposed that when you reach the 100, the spirit of the original caretaker will appear and inform you when and how you will die. Then, returning the same way you came, count again. However, if you do not reach 100, the caretaker will reappear and kill you immediately. According to legend, there are 100 steps going up, but only 99 steps coming down, ensuring the wretched victim's direct path into hell. If you try to climb the hill another way, such as by strolling beside the steps, a ghostly hand will smack you to the ground, leaving a crimson impression on your back for several days. A 5-year-old child went missing in Pavagada, Karnataka, India, in April 1983. Villagers reported seeing a dog-like monster dragging the child away. Another youngster went missing 10 days later. Then there was another and another and another. After the 5 children vanished, the disappearances ceased for 2 months. Then, in July 1983, A 3-year-old daughter went missing from her mother's room. The next morning, villagers discovered blood and the clothing the girl was wearing spread over the footprints of a huge animal. Police were called, and soon after, tales about man-eating wolves abducting the children began to circulate, started by the officers. It was determined that all of the missing youngsters were females who were abducted at night while sleeping near their parents. There was also talk of black magic being practiced in the Madakshira region, which isolates Pavagada from the rest of Karnataka. Taxi drivers avoided driving into Madakshira after dark, and by the time 7 children had gone missing, stories about werewolves had spread across the city. The mystery of the lost children persists, as does the urban legend of Pavagada's werewolves. During the searches, some human remains were discovered, although it is still unknown what caused the fatalities. Isn't a graveyard just a graveyard? They're all creepy. But that's where the similarities end. However, in the instance of Kate Blood, the story does not finish in the Riverside Cemetery in Appleton, Wisconsin. Kate Blood is said to have been a cold-hearted witch who used an axe to slaughter her children and husband. Her tombstone now drips with blood on full moon evenings, much to the horror of those who have purportedly witnessed this scene. In truth, Kate Blood, 23, died of TB in 1874. Leaving behind a 2-year-old daughter, her husband remarried and lived for 42 years following the death of his first wife. He and his second wife are both interred in the same plot as Kate. So, where did the tradition of the dripping headstone originate? After all, Kate's surname was Blood, and her tomb is isolated from the others and is located on a hill near the Fox River, and this is ideal material for a spooky legend. After World War I ended, Japanese poet Saijo Yasu wrote a melancholy poem that appeared to express his grief after his father died in battle. The poem Tamino's Hell was quickly given various additional interpretations, one of which claimed the poet recounted Tamino's fall to hell after dying during the conflict. A tale began to circulate that anyone who recited the poem aloud would endanger their own life. This followed reports of personal losses and even death as a result of reading the poem. A young girl is said to have read the verses and died a few seconds later, so it appears that reading it discreetly is the best option in this circumstance, or just don't read it at all. What's more terrifying than a scary urban legend, an urban tale that was proven to be genuine? Many years ago, children were told, and horrified by, the fable of the Candlelight Prowler. The prowler was reported to break into dwellings at night and stand in front of children's beds holding a candle. Those who awoke to find the prowler were so afraid that they remained still until daybreak, when he vanished. They would then run screaming to their parents' bedroom and tell them the terrifying story. The only evidence that the Candlelight Prowler ever entered a child's room was a few drops of wax on the floor. In 2012, police arrested Darren James McDonald and accused him with indecent conduct on children, aggravated burglary, and stealing. McDonald had infiltrated a number of residences in Ballarat, Australia during July and August 2001. He sexually molested 2 little sisters in one of the households. In another, while the family was sleeping, he navigated the house with a candle, dripping wax on the floor as he went. In honor of Stranger Things' amazing 4th season, here's the story of the Hellfire Club in Dublin, Ireland. During the 17th and 18th centuries, many clubs of the same name were created throughout Britain and Ireland. These clubs were intended to be gathering places for the most prominent persons in Ireland and Britain at the time. It quickly became the popular hangout for young males who wanted to drink, party, and have sex. After a while, reports spread about strange conduct at the clubs, including dark magic and satanic rituals. One of the most infamous Hellfire Clubs began as a hunting lodge on Montpellier Hill in Ireland, which still survives today. Locals were outraged when a historic cairnstone was demolished for the construction of this lodge. They believed that destroying the stone irritated the spirits in the area, implying that the spot would be plagued indefinitely. So, even before the Hellfire Club was established at the lodge, there were paranormal sightings. Needless to say, the church and the club clashed, which brought the club unfavorable exposure. More urban legends circulated, including one claiming that a club member had played cards with the devil, and that a cat had to be exorcised after attacking another member. According to legend, black masses were held here, and the devil himself blew the roof off the lodge during a storm. The demonic cat is reported to still lurk near the lodge, his ears like horns and his eyes flashing crimson in the dark. If you're enjoying these short stories, then why not watch the next one, coming up after this. According to some reports, the Penitent Bridge in Wrocław, Poland, was used to locate medieval witches. Women suspected of witchcraft were forced to walk across the bridge because there were no guardrails at the time. They would die if they lost their equilibrium, but they would be exonerated. They would be burnt at the stake for witchcraft if they made it all the way across. During the 15th century, a tradition spread that the restless souls of frivolous women would float around on the bridge at night, sweeping it clean. These women chose coquetry and idleness above worldly duties like childcare and cleaning. Their parents cursed them, and the women's spirits must now sweep the bridge for eternity as penance.